Hey everybody, and welcome to part 4 of our donut series. Well, what we're going to do in this video is we're going to set up lighting and rendering. Okay everybody, well it's donut time again. Welcome to part 4. So in part 1 we modeled our donut, in part 2 we sculpted some detail, part 3 we added the sprinkles, and in this video, part 4, we're going to look at lighting and rendering. Now you're probably wondering, why are you setting up lighting before you have textured? Well, that's because when I texture I want to see real-time results, right? So this is kind of a preliminary setup for my lights that I might tweak while I'm texturing, but at least I have a better understanding of what's happening when I go into my texturing process, right? Just a personal preference. Okay, before we do that, let's clean up our scene a little bit. So if you open this up, you see that we have the dough and the icing, and then the sprinkles are down here, right? So what I need to do is I need to make sure that they're set up correctly. So here, these are my sprinkles. That's my mesh network. I'm going to middle mouse click and drag and pull that up here into the donut setup. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to call this sprinkles, like so, right? Then I'm going to select the donut and I'm going to go up to edit, delete by type in history, and modify and freeze transformation. Now, from this point on, you can't change the distribution of your sprinkles anymore because it's now basically a solid object, right? And then also we still have our reference sprinkle down here. So I'm going to go up to display. We're going to go to show all, take my reference sprinkle there, right? And we're going to delete it. And then I'm going to go into my mesh network and delete that as well. So now we have a clean donut that has dough, icing, and sprinkles. Good to go, right? Okay, so what do we need to do next? We need to deal with the scale of our donut. Now, why? Well, because we're going to be applying lighting. Now, keep in mind, if you take a 6,000 watt light bulb and stick it into a shoebox, you're going to have a completely blown out scene, right? And on the other hand, if you take a 100 watt light bulb and try to illuminate a football stadium, it's not going to work either. Because the lighting in Maya has real world information, it's important that the donut is in the proper scale, right? Now, I investigated the typical dimensions of a donut. Yeah, I really did. And it turns out that a donut should be anything between 2.8 and 3.2 inches in diameter. Now, if you want to know whether you're working in centimeters or millimeters or inches or whatnot, what you do is you go up to Windows. We're going to go to Settings Preferences, go to Preferences, go to Settings right here. And in my case, I'm working in inches, right? So I need to adjust the size here. So I'm just going to jump to the top view. Right now, I'm, let's see, it's a bit too big, looks like, yeah. So I'm going to hit R and let's scale that down. So that's 2 by 2, I would say. So let me move it over to the left so it's easier to see. So that's about 3 inches, right? Okay. And then we're going to hold on X and W, snap it back in position. And then from this point of view, move it up like so. Okay. So we cleaned up our scene. Names are okay. Scale is okay. Position is okay, right? And one more time, I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to go to modify and freeze transformation. There you go. Okay, so what do I need next is a light scheme or light setup, right? So I'm just going to jump into this view right here, go to view, image plane, import image, and then go to my desktop, go to my donut setup and take this setup right here. Now I'll push it to the back so it's not cutting into our donut. And this is our schedule. This is a pretty typical lighting setup for photography. It's used in film as well, depending on whether you have a stationary scene or not. But basically what you have is a main light that's either left or right, right? And then you have a fill light that is in the opposite side that is much lower in intensity. And what the function of that light is to make the shadows a bit less harsh, less dark, less harsh, right? Now in this case, they decided to put a hair light in the back. which is optional, and they also have some background kickers, right? And these are two small lights, kind of have the same function again, and the whole purpose here is to create depth in your scene, right? Now, we're going to play with this. We don't need this per se, so I'm just going to get rid of it, but just so you've seen that. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to set up kind of a backdrop. So we're going to take a simple polygon plane. I'm going to hit R, I'm going to scale that out, make it nice and big. And I don't need that subdivision there. So I'm going to hit Control A to open up the Adbit editor. We're going to go in here, let's set subdivision level to 1 by 1, which is fine. And then I'm going to go back here to Edge, select that, Control E to extrude, W to pull up, like that, right? Then I'm going to select this edge right here. We're going to go to Edit Mesh and Bevel. Let's set these segments to 8 or so. And yeah, we're good. Okay, so that's our backdrop for now. And then we have to decide whether we want to have our donut lying on the floor, which is not typical for food, or do we want some kind of pedestal or something, right? So I'm going to take my donut. I'm just going to hit W, move that up, and I'm going to create a cube. And we're going to use that as a stand, right? So let's scale that up a little bit. Let's check it from the top. Let's see how big it should be. This would be about right. Yeah. Then we're going to go in here. We're going to make sure that the height's correct. So we're going to select these vertices, hit W, move that up like this. And then we're going to bring this down to the floor like this. All right. Now, just to make sure that we're doing everything properly, we're going to go in here and we're going to select that bottom face and delete it, because why would you create something that you're not seeing, right? Okay, hit 5 to go back. You can go in here and take these edges if you like, right? So these 4 edges, and go to Edit Mesh and Bevel, set the fraction to 0.1. maybe even less, 0.02, segments to 3, and there you go. There's a pedestal, right? Or stand, or whatever you want to call it. So we're going to go in here and let's call this thing a stand. Okay, now here's a backdrop, so let's call that backdrop. Okay. Now, the backdrop and the stand, this is basically what I like to call the supporting parts of the scene, right? So, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to select both. I'm going to Control G to group them, and we'll just rename that group to, I don't know, scene setup. There you go, right? And if you open that up, there you go, backdrop and stand. All right. Time to create some lights. Now, our backdrop might be too small a little bit, so I'm just going to stretch that out in this direction, and then right click at an edge and then pull it out a little bit in this direction, and then height wise it should be okay, I think. But what we need to do for now is we need to set up a camera, right? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to Create Camera and select Camera, and then I'm going to go up here to Panels and Look Through Selected. So this is what I'm seeing if I look through the lens of the camera. So let's move that around until it's in a position that I'm happy with. And in this case, because this is basically food photography, if you will, what we're looking for is kind of like an angle like close to 45 degrees, maybe a bit less, but something so you can see all the detail. You don't want to go this far, and 45 degrees may be a bit much, but something like this, I would say, right? We're going to get nice and close in there, like that. I think that's okay. Yeah, let's do that. All right, so now that we have that, we want to remember this, right? So we're going to go into View, Bookmark, Edit Bookmark, and I'll just call this Cam Position 1, Apply and Close, all right? So now we can move around all we want, and when we want to go back to our camera position, we go to View, Bookmark, Cam Position 1, and there we are. Okay, so now that we have all that, we can start with our lighting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using Arnold lights, right? So I'm going to go up here to Arnold, we're going to go to lights, and let's create an area light, okay? Now, I'm going to raise that up, I'm going to raise it over here, and I'm going to hit E to rotate that a little bit. like this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to check it from my top view, because that gives me the best idea of where it's positioned, right? So we're going to hit W, and we're going to kind of move it over here like this, scale it up a bit just so I can see what's going on, and that's kind of the angle that I want. I want it pointing at this corner right there, right? Now, let's see, from a height point of view, I want it to be angled. So I'm going to hit E to rotate. And the best way to see that is to look at, I went the wrong way, to look at this view right here. And if you want to even see it better, what you're going to do is you're going to hit 7 on your keyboard. Now, hitting 7 activates your light, right? Now you can actually see the light on our object. So let's hit W, pull this up a little bit, angle it a bit more by hitting E, and yeah, I think that's about right. Okay, so let's deal with that first light. Okay, so let's go to our bookmark. We're going to go to bookmark. Why does that always happen? I have no idea. Okay, I'm going to forget about the bookmark for now because it's going to be gone in a second anyway. And if you guys know what went wrong there, let me know, right? Okay, so this is our first light. What we're going to do is we're going to hit Control A, and we're going to open that up. And let's look at our area light here. Now, we have a couple of options. We can work with color, so select white or yellow or orange or whatever, or we can use color temperature. Now, I would always advise you to do that, because that will allow you to use Kelvin temperature. Now, that's what's typically done in photography and film as well. The range of, I would say, about 5,000 degrees Kelvin is kind of daylight, maybe 5,200. And depending on how high you go or how low you go, the light will become very bluish and cold, or very warm, orange, red, and so forth, right? So just to give you an idea, use color temperature. Let's go with, let's say, 3,000. That should make it nice and warm. As you can see, kind of orange, right? Or let's go with 8,000, and it will turn very bluish. There you go. So let's go with 5,000 for now. And then we have the intensity and the exposure, right? So we're going to bump up the intensity here quite a bit, and the exposure as well. And that's almost like a multiplier. So let's set the intensity to 5 for now, and let's set the exposure to 3. Now, you probably think, okay, that's what my light is looking like. But if you really want to know, what you need to do is you need to open up the renderer, right? So we're going to go to Arnold, Render. And let's get in here. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that my GPU is selected, right? So I'm going to go into Render Settings right here and bring that in, and then go to System, and instead of CPU, select GPU, right? And then you can go in here, and we have memory set up and so forth. And I'm not going to worry about that too much. Let me see here. Yeah, I'll select my card here. There you go. And let's see if there's anything else we want to do for now. Keep in mind that we're going to be doing a lot of rendering, right? And we don't want to have to wait all the time. So we're going to keep it at a pretty low res right now, right? Okay, let's see if there's anything else I want to change just now. No, it's all good. All right, so we got that set up, right? And you can see that it responds nicely if I go in and out and so forth. That's our first light, and that's the purpose of this setup, right? Okay. So the intensity for now might be a bit much. Let's see, you can change the spread here. We have the resolution. Let's go 1024 on that, right? Let's see, the shadow density. Now, if you move that, you see this makes it very flat, right? This gives a better texture and depth, right? Okay, let's see what else. We're going to leave all of that alone for now. What we're going to do now is we're going to go in here and we're going to set up our second light, right? So this gets that out of the way. We're going to go up to Arnold. We're going to go to Lights and Area Light. And we're going to jump back to our top view because that's where I got a good position to look at it. We're going to move it over here. I'm going to hit R to scale it a little bit, E to rotate, and kind of point it towards our model. Then we're going to go back into our perspective view. Let me bring this back in here. And normally I'm working on multiple screens, but I want you guys to see what's going on. So we're going to go up here and we're going to tilt it, push it down, push it in. And the whole idea of this light is that it's lower in strength, right? So let me flip that some more like this. And then we're going to go in and we're going to go, I'm trying to see where I'm going to leave all this stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we are going to make sure that we're on the second light. And just to do it properly, we'll rename this. So this is the main light, right? And this will be my fill light. So we know what's what, right? Okay, so the fill light should be less intense. So we're gonna go to this guy. And let's tweak that. Okay, so color, use temperature, we'll set that to 5,000. We'll have a spread, we'll leave all of that alone. Let's see here. This guy was set to 5 and 3, so this guy will set to, that would be 1, and that would be 2. So you still have shadow going on there, but it's not as harsh as before. Let me just look at this quality here for a sec. Alright, let's see, that's all good, that's all good. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we have these two lights set up, and we are going to change the angle a little bit. Probably something like that, but that's something we can sort later, right? Okay, so we've got these two set up. What we're going to do next is set up the hair light in the back. So we're going to go up to Arnold, and we're going to go to lights, and we're going to create another area light. Let's minimize this for a sec. We're going to jump to our perspective, jump to the top, and we're going to hit a W to move this, and it's in the back as you can see. Let's hit E to rotate it, point it towards our object, hit R to scale it up a little bit, just so we can see what's going on, and then we're going to jump to our perspective view. All right. Now we're going to take our whole backdrop here and push this a little bit back for the simple reason that we don't want this light to be visible on that backdrop. So we're going to bring it back a little bit, raise it up, and then we're going to hit E to rotate that and kind of move it up like this. And then we're going to rename this guy, and we're going to call it hair light. There you go. Now let's check out the intensity here. So let's get to approximately where our bookmark should have been, would have been, yeah. Let's open this up here. That's not what we want. What I've got here, yeah, we're just gonna go up to Arnold and render. And let me just get this a bit smaller. All right. Okay, and now that we have all of these in position, we can basically go in and tweak the strength of the light, right? So we're going to go into our main light. That's still a white color. Well, not perfectly white. It's a bit yellowish, right? So let's try 5200. Should make it slightly wider. And you can go with just white if you want. You'll get something like that. But I think that color temperature works. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's better. 5500. Okay, so intensity and exposure. We'll set exposure to 4. Yeah, that's fine on that one. Yeah, and other than that, leave that alone. Then our fill light is, we'll set this intensity to 1. And we'll set the exposure to 2. Just so in these corners you don't see that light as harsh, right? Okay, temperature, again, we'll set that to something that's a little bit wider, 5500. Other than that, I'm going to leave that alone. Then we got our hair light. Now, I don't see a lot of activity going on there in our render, so let's see if we can bump that way up just to see what it's doing, right? Okay, so you can see that although it's going on in the back there, it's not really affecting our donut. So we're just going to jump to the top view. Just get this out of the way. I'm just going to jump to my top view here. Actually, let's do it in the perspective view. And it looks like we just have to raise this up a bit. And I'm just looking at what it's doing at the back here. So let's angle it a little bit. And let's see what that looks like. And now we're starting to get somewhere. I kind of like how we see that light going on there on the stand. This would be about the right angle. Yeah, I think that looks fine. Okay, well, as you can see, it's rendering. And again, you know, this is just a test render setup. But as far as our lighting is concerned, as far as our camera setup and so forth, and actually we're not using our camera right now, but that's fine. We're going to fix that in our next video. This is the setup that I'm happy with. So in the next video, we can continue to work on texturing, right? And that will involve some UVing and texturing and so forth. And then we might even go towards a final render, okay? Well, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys in the next one. Bye.